That's where I stand. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate hearing from so many different voices since we've started to have this conversation. I've had meetings, I've had calls, I've read countless emails, and I've heard, moving stories from a lot of sides. And of course, it's an emotional issue because it's where you live. It's about not becoming homeless. It's about where you grew up often. And it's about maintaining, oftentimes a family legacy, a sense of financial stability. And I think financial stability is one of those foundational things. If you've ever had those moments where you didn't have enough in the fridge, where you weren't sure if you could make it to the end of the month, those things cut deep and they affect your daily life. And we hear that from owners, and we definitely hear that from renters too. So that's why we saw tears on both sides, because it's real. The idea about not, creating some sort of hostile environment, I think when the city council and our staff started hearing about evictions that have begun since we started this conversation, that's hostile. That, there's just no, when we had the discussion in 2015, and renters who dared to speak up with their 100% increases were retaliated against, that's hostile. And for again, those thoughtful landlords who are really sensitive to the needs of their residents, we absolutely appreciate and encourage that. But like one of the renters, yeah, absolutely, very important. And there was one of the renters who spoke and reminded us that, it's great that there's so many responsible landlords, and there really are. It's heartwarming. But not everybody is like that. And if they were, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But it's easy to think about your own financial stresses, and it's a little bit harder to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And our job tonight, our job as long as we're in office, is to be able to look beyond those who have, and to think about those who deserve to have rights and who haven't. As our former mayor said, 102 years is a long time to not have any form of renter protection. That's a long time. And historically, when you put housing in context, housing is wrapped up in racism in this country. And so, building wealth for those families who have, like mine. I feel really fortunate. But I don't think any of us can afford to ignore the legacy, the racist legacy of housing in this country that have subsidized white people and stolen from future generations of people of color. And those are just facts. They're just facts. And so we, like other cities, need to think about equity in every single thing that we do. And we have to stop pretending that any of our policies, especially our land use policies, are somehow devoid of those cultural legacies, are, as if the free market were really free, as if it were a tree, something born in nature and not touched by human hands. All of these things, all of our land use, everything a city does is anchored in this human touch. And for far too long, this human touch has been wrong, has promoted inequity, has not created an even playing field. And so it's, what I think we're trying to achieve is some balance. Because when folks are, we're hearing like, we need this financial flexibility. Hell yeah, we need financial flexibility. Renters need financial flexibility. Renters need a sense of stability, and so do the landowners. Having a sense of stability and predictability is good for the community. Now, to those who have said that, the findings are, super vanilla, hey, there's no problem, the average is 3% or 4% or 5% or whatever, those are averages, right? They're smoothed out. Because we know the families, some of them are on Section 8, who have had 50% increases, 30% increases. And in the case of Section 8, guess who pays for it? All of us, okay? But for a lot of other folks with those 100% increases or the 20% increases every 6 months, I don't care how much you make, that kind of instability and unpredictability in your life makes living hard. I have to say I'm deeply shocked by a number of emails that were sent equating renter protections with a rise in homelessness, as if all of a sudden, providing protections for people who already live here is somehow going to, cause some sort of a gang wars in our apartments. I mean, there was some interesting reading that we had. And I hope that we, during this year, that we can come together in better understanding of each other and what it means to be on both sides of this issue. And I wanted to thank the landlords who came up to share their stories and experiences where, you know what, I still make money with that 3%. Because when that this is possible. I mean, just think of Prop 13. Just think of the gift of Prop 13. There's an uneven playing field. That's government. It's government. And, it doesn't treat everybody alike. if we can start repairing some of the inequities, that can help. You know, we heard a lot of families of apartment owners who've worked hard, who have scraped together their money and who really believe in and depend upon this wealth that their families have built. And I think that's wonderful. And I think people need those opportunities. But when people are so rent burdened that they're paying 50% of their income in rent just because the market will bear it, how will those families have those chances? How will those families get those same opportunities to build up that wealth? They are working hard as well. So again, we've got a year, and in order to have this conversation, we need to protect the renters, especially the ones who already got their eviction notices, because we're having this conversation. So, do you want to dive down into the details here, colleagues? I think, Councilmember Lee, you said what you...
Yeah, I pretty much said my part. When it comes to the details, I'm perfectly happy to make a comment if someone brings up something else that I did not address.
Okay.